in most special elections. But Steve Kornacki, what do we see happening here?
Yeah, what you haven't seen in this one, and it'll be interesting to see what it translates into, is that concerted national effort from Democrats. If you think back to Pennsylvania 18, the last big special election, Democrats were all in on that one. They thought they could win it, and they ended up winning it in the end. This one, Democrats seem to be putting in a slightly different class, even though that graphic you just put up on the screen, on paper, this looks a lot like Pennsylvania 18, just in the fact that Trump had won it by 20 points. He won both districts basically by 20 points. I think one of the differences Democrats see is that if you look at that corner of Pennsylvania where they just flipped the seat, that's a place that voted for Mondale, it voted for Dukakis, it voted for Clinton. It was voting Democratic pretty regularly until about the last 15, 20 years ago. And even still, there's a lot of residual Democratic loyalty around there. So they didn't think it was necessarily that lost. If you look down there, we're talking about the West Valley, outside on the west side of Phoenix there, Glendale, Surprise, that area. You're looking at a place that doesn't have that kind of tradition of voting for Democrats. Romney won it by 25. Trump won it by 21. But also you look at that screen you just put up. Even if Democrats don't win tonight, the other thing people are looking at is how much of that Trump margin are they able to cut into? Because if you're looking at a double-digit slice like we've been seeing in these other places, that again speaks to this energy and this potential wave that Democrats have been looking toward.
And if there is a double-digit slice here, it would be truly remarkable because the odds are so much against it. You look at how old the demographic is here, and it's just, I think, about 75% of the voters are over 55. They don't have a large portion of minority voters in this specific district. And Debbie Lesko is a pretty good candidate. She's a strong candidate. I think that's why Democrats didn't spend that many resources there, because it's different from other specials where the Republican candidate has just been pretty terrible and it's worth the investment. The other thing that I would say is that Reuters recently had a new poll saying that older Republicans are shifting to Dems. And in contrast to, you look at in 2016, they had about 10 points favorability to go Republican, and now they're up about 2 for Democrats. If there is a shift here, it would be remarkable and really point towards a blue tsunami.
And the weird thing is we have seen in some of those other special elections that we didn't pay much attention to and that Democrats weren't focused on. Kansas 4, which was basically about a year ago. This is the Wichita area. That was Pompeo's district. When he left, not much of a recent Democratic tradition there. Democrats shaved 20 points off there as well. The other interesting thing, we will be up late watching this tonight, though. They do elections funny in Arizona. About 11 o'clock Eastern tonight, they are going to dump all at once about 70% of all the votes that are cast. So we may know pretty much that we expect the Republican to be ahead. The question is going to be, how much is she ahead then? If it still looks competitive, we will then wait another hour and they will begin reporting the actual election.
A long night for you.
We look at that screen of all these special elections and the way they've swung. We've got enough evidence now to say there's something of a trend. Are these isolated? Is there something special about each of these that maybe is not as much a referendum on Trump? Or do you think if we look at the totality of what's in front of us, that there is a message being sent about this president?
So, I mean, look, this is steady and this is consistent across the board, except if you want to take the role of a Republican here trying to put a good spin on November, here's what they look at. The second one you see down there, Georgia 6. Every Republican best case scenario for November relies on that one. Remember this race? John Ossoff was the Democrat. Now, what made Georgia 6 different than a lot of the other races you see there? It was nationalized. Democrats poured tens of millions of dollars into it. Trump was engaged. Sort of the national media was engaged. The national culture was engaged. You saw late night television perk up. What Republicans will tell you, I'm not saying I buy it, but what Republicans will tell you is a race being nationalized like that got their base excited too.
But
Democrats were excited and the Republicans turned out.
Isn't it true in the case of Georgia 6 that even though Trump only carried it by a small margin, that was Tom Price's district, I believe, and he carried it by a much, much larger margin?
Well, he basically had no opponent in 2016.
Okay.
The Atlanta Journal-Constitution did a story that said, does this person actually exist? And they couldn't conclude that the person did. I think that's one of those. What you see there consistently is double-digit movement from the Trump margin in 16. That's the one district, that's the one special election where they improved on the Trump margin in that district.
And Democrats haven't even been competing here. They didn't even run anyone. They haven't run a candidate since 2012. I'm pretty sure.
In the Trent Franks district,
interesting. And the Democrat is an ER physician. So the education election background of this district? What more do we know about the Democrats?
No, this is a little bit. So if you want to compare it to Pennsylvania 18 that we just had, as we say, it's more Republican just when you look at registration, when you look at voting tradition. It's not as blue collar as Pennsylvania 18 was. It is a very old district as well. It's also a very there is a non-white population there, but again, it's a largely white district. So again, overall, you're looking at a profile of a district that it's not one of these that swung hard to Donald Trump. It's one of these that's been voting double-digit, 20-plus points for Republicans for a long time now, and that's not just at the presidential level. That's all the way down.
So what's the Kornacki call? What's the prediction here tonight?
Well, Kornacki doesn't make calls.
Well, I think
that's the thing.
If you look at it, that trend you've been seeing, look, it would be a true shock if Democrats were to win this thing. But I'm setting the bar at about 8 points in this thing. I think if Democrats get the final margin under 8 points in this race, I think they're going to be feeling awfully good. And if Republicans can get this thing close to double digits or even over double digits, they're going to declare that some kind of victory.
Well, 8 points would be a huge swing.
Call.
Yeah, it would still be a significant
huge swing.
All right.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube. On the 25th of April 2016, the title of our episode, Arizona Sends Message to GOP and Trump. Very interesting special election out in a red district of Arizona. And it was a very interesting district to begin with. A lot of posters had it a very, very close race, and it ended up a 6-point race there in Arizona 18, I believe it was. Debbie Lesko ended up winning it. Hara Tremeni, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly here. I had it, Dr. Hara Tremeni. Anyway, I think I got it close enough there as to where she is. I'm looking at her site here, and we started off with Dr. Tremeni speaking, and then we went on to the party at a private home for Debbie Lesko. Jan Brewer, the former governor of Arizona, was speaking there and talking about the problem that the GOP has and how the GOP can get out of this. Unfortunately, though, however, for the GOP, Jan Brewer lists several things. Low taxes. Well, you have low taxes, but the problem there and the problem they face in Arizona, the teacher strike that's coming up on Thursday, that would be tomorrow. And Brewer goes on to describe the awful situation, the state of education in Arizona, these constant cutbacks in education budget, and we see them in many of these states, and in particularly in red states. West Virginia, a very red state, had a teacher strike there last 10 days, then went to the very red state of Oklahoma, teacher strike there. Actions in the state, the Commonwealth actually of the Commonwealth, also West Virginia, the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So we have these teacher actions in these very red states that the education systems have been neglected for decades, literally decades. And this is what you end up with in this low tax operation that the Republicans are trying to sell. Now, a lot of this will start revolving around the direction that independents and Democrats getting out to vote. Now, this particular race was not as nationalized. We got a fundraiser from her, and I didn't even know who she was. But the whole point is this. She was an ER doctor. She talked about, and a cancer researcher. She talked about issues that real people in their day-to-day lives encounter, such as health care and the right of people to have health care. Now, she was a Trump candidate. She was not one of these watered-down type of characters such as Cory Booker, the Twitter king, now a so-called senator out of New Jersey, and the rest of these in-house Democrat-type characters like Tom Perez. We could name a whole slew of these characters. But I was looking in the Arizona Republic here, the Arizona.com, 5 takeaways from Lesko's lackluster win in Arizona's special election is the title there. And it says the election is over and Republican Debbie Lesko has won the West Valley congressional seat. The West Valley is an older demographic there in the West Valley, and also at the same time, these people evidently in the West Valley had not voted for Democrats since the 70s. And there are not very many non-Europeans in that district. And it goes on to say here, the GOP had a 17-point registration advantage. I imagine it's more than that. DJ Trump won the district by 21 points. Democrats didn't even file a candidate in that district in 2014-2016, so the president congressman got into trouble and was forced, as they say, to bail. Period. The special elections tend to be low turnouts. The older, more conservative voters who are the core of Arizona's 8th Congressional District, which includes Sun Cities. And that's basically places like Peoria, Arizona. I heard that listening to a Cubs game. I wonder where the hell that was. Anyway, I thought they were in Peoria. Anyway, Dr. Tremeni is new to politics. She's never ran for office before, ran an impressive campaign, did a very good job of fundraising. Lesko, whereas had been a state legislature and been in the district, active in politics for 20 years. That's a very long time there. And Lesko embraced DJ Trump, which is not very popular. And Janet Brewer was asked the question, how does that affect Governor Ducey? Well, Arizona is a state that is trending more and more towards Democratic politics, and in some instances, we know Gabby Gifford there, that is trending more and more towards progressive politics. One of the problems is when you have a lot of senior citizens, they do get older and older, and they pass from, as they say, the horizon. Now, it's a kind of an interesting thing also with DJ Trump. Some of the older citizens themselves have reevaluated his particular setup, and it becomes more Mickey Mouse by the day. Now he's got the latest Pompey for Secretary of State, a man that literally doesn't know the world map. And now he's got another character there, the White House doctor, who even Barack Obama had good things to say about him, Jackson. Jackson, though, is known as Candyman for giving out drugs pretty freely. And he said, well, we give a sleeping pill or whatever it is, 1 or 2 at a time. Well, that's not unusual. The old-time doctors used to do that. I don't know about sleeping pills, but various types of medication, 1 or 2 at a time, perhaps even an antibiotic if you were not allergic to it. They would give you 1 pill at a time there. So that is not done very much now because of federal laws, depending on what he was giving out. But if he was known as Candyman, evidently after people were examined for pain, and there's a lot of pain, and you can assume in the White House there's a lot of sleepless nights around, so people would be taking sleep medication. Don't look at that as severe for Candyman Jackson, but the problem is that he was abusive, and of course he was a drunkard. Now, I don't know, people allege all kinds of things, but the committee had to, as they say, stop the clock and see where Candyman was. And the only reason I got off on the Candyman thing here, this plays into the 18th district. Now, Lesko's single digits, no doubt about that, about 6 percentage points. Could spell trouble for Republicans headed into the regular election cycle. The outcome suggests high enthusiasm amongst Democratic voters and independent voters. The Republicans have always depended on independent voters, period. This is like a 15-point race, and even a 12-point, if this is a 15 or 12-point race, then and that's the reality. Disappointing for Democrats. That is from Bill Dill. He's a Democratic consultant. Well, in a district like this, DJ Trump, 15 points would have been disappointing, but 6 points is a victory. That's why we put it as a wake-up call there. With a tempered victory, Lesko heads to Washington to wait another month to learn if the Republicans will challenge her in the August, if any Republican, the August primary. So they have an August primary coming up, and then they go into the general election for November. The seat is back up there. One seat that Democrats have an eye on is a 6th district where David Swackard, I don't know, anyway, holds a seat in the district where Trump won by 10 points less, about half the margin by Lesko's district. So they have their eyes on some things in Arizona, no doubt about it. Let me just get to the Arizona teachers' strike coming up on Thursday. The governor's engaged in that. And it says the big sell, how the former business type, Ducey didn't know that, to win support for teachers' pay raise plan, the selling of the plan to give teachers a 20% pay raise by 2020. That is 2 years off. In social media, Ducey is talking to voters via the telephonic town hall. Interesting way there. Introducing the plan made for a TV conference. And Ducey has run 2 full weeks of a full-court press and getting the advertising about his plan. He said would give teachers a 20% raise without raising taxes, cutting into services or leaving Arizona in a financial hole. That's interesting how he plans to pull that one off. In the legislature, lawmakers of both parties have denounced the plan, are introduced competing plans. In other words, they're not buying the scheme that Ducey has going there. The selling of the plan began at the outset with a news conference on a Thursday that changed the locations once and changed locations twice. Oh boy. What has been the 3 p.m. announcement in the governor's office became a 4 p.m. Oh, this is more hilarious here. This is why I got into it. Ducey's education advocate Dean Dwan Wallace laid out the plan in anyway vague terms. It's the first time that Pence FACA had met with the who's Pence FACA? Pence FACA. I'm not sure who Pence FACA is, but some functionary in Arizona, I assume. Anyway, nonetheless, I'm reading this here. The selling of the plan goes into hyperdrive. Well, what is the plan? It provides, not sure what the plan is. Maybe we'll find out here. A member of, what? I'm not sure about all this. Ducey hopes a week-long sales job would be enough to get the plan through the legislature. In a conference call with voters held on the 15th of April, Ducey responded to a question from a woman in, this is Peoria, Illinois again, named Jennifer. She asked when the plan might pass. She said she had put in for retirement, though about returning to teaching spurred by the race. Ducey told her he was working hard every day, and he predicted swift passage. Not so sure about all that, but red for Ed, as they say. Anyway, the Governors Association, which supports members, this gets to be goofier every day. Sales job is not working. A spokesman for The governor, let's see, Daniel Strapantoni said that he believes the selling plan was progressing just fine. Ducey was optimistic. In the House chamber on Tuesday, a group of Phoenix Union high school students were holding a mock legislative session at the Capitol. The students proposed bills in meeting rooms, etc. Well, I'm not sure what that is. The sales job has been happening, she said. Tuesday stands on the House floor. It's simply just not working. Now, Representative Bosnick, she is from Tempe, spoke to the students on the floor and said the plan is not working. So this is so much for the Ducey plan. It's not going anywhere. We're competing plans there. Hourly workers from aides to cafeteria workers won't be paid during the Arizona teachers walkout, they say. Debbie Bergengren has helped Arizona teachers support students with special needs since 1994. And one of many classified employees, the teachers walkout will impact her. So, in other words, Bergengear will not get paid. Classified staff voted along with teachers as part of the Arizona Education Association. Like teachers, classified workers are conflicted about walking out of school and worry about the impact of a prolonged walkout on students. I assume they would worry about that. Berlinguer also works 3 jobs to survive. Now, this is something else. She's 57 years old. What the shutdown means, no wages at all. And red for Ed. So we go. Anyway, Menard said the counselors are classified as administrators, pay like teachers, not acknowledged in Ducey's proposed pay rate. So this is more and more in holes there. Jamie Menard, a school counselor in the Isaac Elementary School and board chair of the Arizona School Counselors Association, said she supports a walkout. She views it as a necessary step for state lawmakers to grasp the gravity of the situation. I feel invisible, Menard went on to say. Arizona has 924 teachers per counselor. So in other words, it's a dire situation in the state of Arizona. The teachers are going out on strike, and that is basically it. And let me see if... well, I guess we're not. But anyway, nonetheless, we'll cover that teachers' strike, and we'll look at it. 6 point, let me just give the numbers here. Trippinetti, 82,318 votes, and Lesko, 91,390. Dr. Trippinetti had 47.4, which is respectable, and Lesko 52.6, so she's 2-3 points, however you want to count it, over where she could literally be. Let me grab a couple of other little things here. Washington Post has a big headline here. Republicans win closely watched special election. Well, yeah and no. This is a 20-point Trump, DJ Trump district there. So the problem we're on display in Arizona is Trippinetti made inroads into a reliable Republican district. The Democrats appeared to carry 58 of the district's 142 precincts in 2016. In 2016, Hillary Clinton carried just 12. The city of Peoria and Glendale, I've never been to Peoria. Anyway, swings towards Tripanetti, the working class area, Glendale, as did surrounding retiree, heavily Sun City. That's very interesting. That is a little bit of a phenomenon there when you start talking about people over 64, 65. Usually as they tend to get older, they tend to also move more Democratic. That would be there. This Trent Franks resigned last year. He won the district by, 37 points. The Democrats didn't even run anyone against him. Period. DJ Trump, and in fact, DJ Trump did calls, and we need Debbie in the Congress. Well, the people there didn't think they need Debbie as well as he needed Debbie. Early voting, that was where they were strong. 150,000 votes were cast. Nearly half of the return of ballots, 48.5%, were cast by Republicans, and just 27.7% were cast by Democrats. The average age of the district resident is 45, but the early voters were 68. So many of those. Tripanetti talked about Medicare, telling voters that she would strengthen the program by allowing younger Americans to buy into it. The Republican National Congressional Committee has spent $900,000, almost $1 million on it. And they brought Nancy Pelosi, and I don't know if they brought Hillary Clinton, I guess they did not. Glenn Hammer, President and CEO of the Arizona Chamber of Commerce and Industry. This is a solid red state. He's dreaming. Off-year election always difficult for the party in the White House. It wasn't easy for the last president. So far, not for this president. Well, not in the type of district that he is in. The border wall and all that sort of malarkey there. Anyway, to the Department of Education, where one Betsy DeVos is there, is considering curbing the department's role in investigating racial disparities in discipline. So in other words, the Civil Rights Data Collection, which contains detailed information from the 2015-2016 school year and more than 96,000 public schools, offers more evidence that certain young people, including African American, Latino males, and American Indian students, face harsher disciplines. We could have told them that. About 2.7 million suspensions were handed out in that year, and about 100,000 fewer than 2 years earlier, but the number of students being referred to law enforcement authorities and arrested on school grounds at school activities increased. About 291,000 such referrals and arrests occurs in 2015-2016, an increase of 5,000. African American students account for 15% of the student body in the 2015-16 year, but 31% of the arrests. 2 years earlier, African American students accounted for 16% of the student body and 27% of the arrests. You see where that is going. They accounted for 9% of the enrollment, but shows the students with disabilities are far more likely to face suspension or arrest at school. They account for 12% of the enrollment. And the facts are that black and whites, for all to see, racism is alive and well in the American school system. That is from Janet Brownie Dykes, Executive Director of the National Office of the Advancement Project of Civil Rights Group. The Trump administration is weighing eliminating the Obama-era guidance and criticism from amidst criticism from educators, no doubt. So old Amway DeVos there, well, somebody from the conservative or right-wing Manhattan Institute said the research is not sufficiently conclusive for the federal government to require school districts to change their policy that are not discriminatory on their face. This has been the scheme that they've come up with over and over again, that it has to be on the face and changing of policies. The problem we have now, discrimination is running rapid in terms of expulsions, disciplinary actions in schools, discrimination in various other services such as Medicare, Medicaid. They're just running rampant all over the place. There's no doubt about that. Let me just check our time here. And we're doing pretty good time-wise. We'll do the sports in a second here. Just wanted to go to Real Clear Politics. Very quickly we were there, but just quickly to look at one of the polls here. This was an Emerson poll, I believe. It pretty much hit it out there. We had several polls on a Tuesday. Fox News poll, that is in West Virginia. Jenkins by 4 over Morrissey and Blankenship. I'm not sure. These are all, I guess, Republicans. And in New Hampshire, Sununu versus Merchant. I'm not sure. Sununu is ahead nonetheless. In Maryland, this is Hogan and Baker. Hogan is ahead by 13 over some candidates here. I'm not sure who they are. The outliner poll, Rasmussen had DJ Trump at 48. We're going to get away from that. But the Emerson poll has had Lesko at 49, a little bit under, and Tripimeni at 42%, change around Lesko by 6. It did end up Lesko by 6 there. The Gallup has, that was on Monday, DJ Trump at 38%. And that's basically about it. Let me just look at the Emerson poll here very quickly. So the data here make up about 49% of the total vote. Republicans compared with Democrats, who make up under 28% of the total vote. In a previous poll, he polled the turnout. Projections were based upon voter registration. The district had 41% Republicans, 25% Democrats. Regardless of affiliation, Lesko has a 4-point swing in the raw numbers. And go into the methodology here. Anyway, Professor Spencer Kimball, under his supervision there, the sample consists of only likely voters with a credibility similar to a margin of, 5.2. It was about right there. So anyway, this was pretty much tell us your gender, etc., and, how old you are. And I don't have the crosstabs here, but you basically get what is going on here. So basically the poll, Tripanetti, 49 to 43 with 8% were undecided, according to this. So the undecided, I suppose, must have drifted at least 2% of them or so to Debbie Lesko. She was at 49, and Tripanetti. Let's see. Let me go back and get this thing up here. Here we go. Well, no, she had 47.4, and so she moved up, and let's go. So she picked up quite a few of the undecided. I'm talking about Dr. Tripanetti here. She's at 47.4, and Lesko picked up a few, about 2%, and that was it. So she got roughly about 6% of the undecided, which is very good for a challenger in that challenging type environment. We'll go and do the sports now. Take a pause here, a non-commercial break for WBRN Radio and the Boston Red Network. We forgot to put that in. Hold on a second. All right, to the NBA, I'm reminded of a nice little quote from Dan Rabb, of all people, talking about the San Antonio Spurs. Nonetheless, the San Antonio Spurs will forced to take a back seat, so to speak. The Warriors have won the series 4-1. The score there was 99 for the Warriors and 91 for San Antonio. And to the 76ers, 104-91 over the Heat. They win the series, that series 4-1. And we still have the Bucks and Celtics series in Boston's series. Boston won 92-87. Boston leads the series 3-2. So that will do it for the NBA, where they were on Tuesday night. We got them all taken care of. Let me skip over to the NHL here and see where they are. There was only one. Well, no, there wasn't. This is just a preview. There was nothing going on. The Bruins and Maple Leafs, that will be today, I suppose. Yeah. Anyway, later today. All right. We'll go to baseball. The Mariners and White Sox on the south side of Chicago. Mariners 1-0 in that contest. The Cubbies and Cleveland. It was all Cubbies in Cleveland. 10-3 the line score there. Cubs had 15 hits, 1 error. And Cleveland 9 hits and 1 error there. Mr. Chatwood was the winner. The Twins and Yankees in New York. Yankees 8-3 line score there. Yankees had 10 hits, 4 errors. Holy moly. And the Twins had 5 hits and 1 error. Sabathia was the winner there. In 12, Atlanta and Cincy. The Reds 9-7 there. And the D-backs and Phillies in Philadelphia. D-backs 8-4. D-backs are playing pretty good ball. Yeah. And in 10, the Red Sox were in Toronto. And it was the Blue Jays 4-3. The Athletics and Rangers in Texas. Athletics 3-2. Athletics are winning some games this season. Interesting. The Angels and Astros in Houston. The Angels outlast the Astros 8-7. The line score there. The Angels had 8 hits and no errors, and the Astros had 14 hits and no errors. And in 10, the Mets were in St. Louis. Mets 6-5 over the Cardinals. Oh well. Mr. Familia got the save. Nonetheless, the Brewers were in Kansas City. Brewers 5-2 over the Royals, and the Padres were in the Mile High City, Denver. Rockies 8-0, and they got shut out there. The Marlins were in Los Angeles and beat the Dodgers 3-2. Mr. Baez, everything, Pedro Baez was a loser. Oh well. The Nationals and the Giants in San Francisco. The Giants are winning some now. Montana was the winner, and anyway, Roy Strickland got the save. Anyway, Giants 4-1 that contest, and postponed. Rays and Orioles still being rained out. Rain delay there, and that was the end of that story right there. And that was in the Canada Yard, and the Tigers and Pirates in there. I think the rain got them too. The rain tide became the 28th postponed men in the majors this year, and steady rain forced the Pittsburgh Pirates and to postpone the opener. Anyway, it's been a lot of inclement weather has been very, very bad here. For baseball, it's sort of like these special elections have been for the GOP. nonetheless, the title of our episode here, we've been working on the title here, Arizona sends a message to GOP and Trump. And it came out of the 8th District. These kinds of races are very interesting races. They are local races, and a district with a lot of senior citizens, like the 18th in Arizona, are receptive to the type of platform that Dr. Trementi put forward there. She'd been there for 20 years, cancer researcher, former ER doctor. She evidently connected very well with the people. And in spite of the Nancy Pelosi commercials and whatever else commercials they could throw out there, they just could simply not get it done in a low turnout election that favored them more than, say, a general election. It'll be interesting to see what happens in November as this race progresses on. I don't know if Dr. Trementi has an opponent in the August primary or not, but there probably will be somebody that opposes Lesko. This will do it for us. Have a good day, I suppose I'd say. And we shall return with more program. And incidentally, we're working on the book by James Comey. And we will have a review of it sometime in the future here. We still have the Puerto Rican program on Puerto Rico. We'll do that because we need to bring people up to date on that status in Puerto Rico and the efforts to privatize their electrical authority in Puerto Rico. And, of course, we constantly work on numbers man reports around here. And maybe we're lucky this week we'll get another open source report up there. Excuse me. With Numbers Man, that's our macroeconomics program, we're starting to enlarge some of the data sources. We've been getting updates from such different organizations as the Federal Reserve. We always get their updates from several of the Federal Reserve banks. But now we have Goldman Sachs. We get updates from them. And various others. We'll start to utilize some of those updates more in our presentations. We're not sponsored by any of these organizations, incidentally. We only are sponsored by Crescent Analytics. That's it. And coming up shortly here, I think next week, we cover the Woodstock for financial people, known as the Bertha Hathaway meeting. There, Warren Buffett will be there, Charlie Munger will be there, Munger will be there, and they'll be presiding, as one would say. They have their stockholders meeting in the auditorium there in Omaha, Nebraska. We've been down there to cover that thing live. I don't know if we'll go down and cover it live or out or up or whatever the story might be. But they are now live streamed on Yahoo, so we can still cover it live and take notes and come with the important parts of it. That's always on a Saturday morning. And I think it's on... Oh, let me just take a look. We have time here. We'll go to May. Be May the 6th, I assume here. Yeah, May 5th. Which is also Cinco de Mayo. We can wish everybody a happy Cinco de Mayo and a May Day all thrown in. Good day.
Good. Governor, let me ask you this. Tonight's election results show some erosion for Republican candidates in our state. We're about to have a giant teacher walkout. How worried should Governor Ducey inside right now be about his election?
I think all Republicans better wake up and listen to the public and listen to what they want and represent the people that elected them.
What do they want? What do you think? What does the public want in your view?
Well, I'm sure they haven't told me everything that they want. They probably have told their elected officials what they want.
You have your finger on the pulse, Governor. You know
Governor, let me ask you this about the teacher walkout coming out. I mean, under your administration, with cuts and cuts and cuts to the funding for K-12 education, and the teachers and the school staff are fed up.
Well, I've never seen anything like it in my lifetime here in Arizona. It's amazing what has happened, but we knew, at least I knew when I was on the 9th floor, that we were going to have additional revenue source. I knew that we were going to have additional revenue source in order to keep maintaining our education system in Arizona, and people are going to have to step it up and decide if they're ready to do it or not do it. Our facilities are falling apart. Our teachers are underpaid. We've got teachers upset that are walking out. We've got parents that are upset. Somebody's got to get their hands around it and get it under control.
Is the governor doing a good job?
Victory here in a deep red district.
Is it 5 now?
Debbie is up by 5. 5 and a 20.
How many priests? How much is it?
There are 28,000 votes, about 15 to 20% voters left. Day of vote.
How about early? Are the early ballots all counted?
All the early ballots are
Provisional ballots?
1,000. 5 points in a deep red district. What you got to tell Republicans and the rest of the country?
It tells us that we're going to have to work really hard. We're going to have to listen to our constituents, and we're going to have to tell them what Republicanism stands for. They want solutions. The public wants solutions.
What does Republicanism stand for?
Less government, lower taxes, deregulation, a border.
Where will the money come from to fund a teacher's raise?
That's up to the policymakers where they want to get that revenue source from. I know where I got my money when I needed it for the budget.
Do you think the current governor's been doing a good job handling it?
I'm not going to answer that. No, I would probably. I am a truth teller, but I'm not answering.
We have a rally we're going to do in a minute, so we got to go.
Question: would you vote for a tax increase to pay for better education for our kids now? Tax increase?
Here we go. You know, Governor, you know what you want.
Hey, Governor, should the current governor come talk to us?
This is a Fox 10 News Alert.
All right, everybody, I'm joined here now with Fox 10 Phoenix's very own Carrie Lake. Carrie, thanks for joining us.
Good to see you. I'm going to turn some volume down over here.
Appreciate it.
Well, election night's always exciting, and this is a special election, so I don't think the surprise here is that Debbie Lesko won. I know that a lot of people were saying this was going to be really close, and Harold Tempernini had a shot at winning it.
Yeah.
I think people who really look at this district say that was going to be a long shot. But we can't forget that Dr. Tempernini raised a lot of money.
Yes.
She outraised the Republican in this district. And so she's got some money going into the August election. And it's her belief that if she didn't win tonight, she was going to continue on and run again in August. So now she's got all of this practice kind of at doing it, and she's going to go at it one more time. Yes. I think the bigger question tonight, or the bigger shock isn't who won, Debbie Lesko, the Republican winning in a Republican district, but it's how big is the spread going to be? Can we pull the numbers up? I think last I looked, it was about a 6-point spread. That's a pretty decent spread. If this starts to tighten up and we get below that, I think that's going to be a real positive for Democrats that they, I don't know, are within striking distance, but they're making some headway in this district. This is a district Donald Trump won by 20-plus points in 2016. Trent Franks never had a problem winning re-election. As a matter of fact, many times the Democrats didn't even field a candidate versus Trent Franks. It was just kind of a futile effort. Why even bother? And I think the last time they did put a candidate in was in 2012. So this is a solidly Republican district. To me, the question we're going to be looking at is how close was this race? And right now we're at 6 points. This is still early. Obviously, Debbie Lesko has been is announced the winner tonight by the AP very early in the evening. And the people who were saying, oh, this is going to be tight, this could be a squeaker, I I never believed that. And I think you've been around probably long enough in Arizona politics to know that would have been a shocker. That really would have been a shocker.
It really would have. Steve was saying that they haven't voted Democrat in this district since 1977.
So the question then is, how close will this be? Did the Democrats gain some ground here? Debbie Lesko has been a proven lawmaker. She's been around. And Dr. Tibernetti was a really respectable candidate who did a good job, and she connected with the voters as well. So we had two female candidates going against one another. And some of the ads were a little bit dirty, but it wasn't that bad. I mean, thankfully it was a short run.
We've seen a lot worse.
We'll see what happens come August. That's going to be interesting in the next election.
So here is Debbie Lesko's event live, expecting a victory speech probably very soon.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I see, sometimes you can spot the candidate kind of making her way through the crowd, but we just saw former Governor Jan Brewer, who was stumping for Debbie Lesko, and maybe you can paraphrase kind of what Governor Brewer said, because you were listening to more of it. I was kind of making my way over.
So we've had a couple of breaking news stories tonight. We had that Dallas officer-involved shooting. Police just gave an update as former Governor Brewer was speaking, so we cut in at the tail end, but she just said that the results speak for themselves, and this is what she expected.
Right.
So
I'm really looking forward to either in a couple of hours, or if we don't know for some reason this morning, I think we're going to have a really good idea in an hour or two how much this spread is going to be. Is it going to widen? Is it going to shrink? I think if it widens and we're looking at 10 points or more, this is going to be a difficult win for the Democrats. And I don't think anybody in the Democratic Party thought it would be easy, but some of the polling was really inaccurate. And, it really bothers me. We keep seeing this election cycle after election cycle to where you can't believe the polls anymore. These polls that were saying neck and neck. I mean, let's see what happens here, but I don't know. I think it's going to be a long shot to see this be a neck-and-neck race. I might be wrong.
Yeah, we also have Dr. Harold Tipernetti's event there on the right-hand side. So we have cameras at both events. Okay. Looking to see here. Is that there she is?
Let's take a look. She's walking in with Governor Jan Brewer, who's been a longtime supporter and friend.
Supporters say a win is a win, but even Lesko's good friend, former Governor Jan Brewer, says this win is a warning to Republicans across the country. The special election was viewed nationwide as a vote on President Trump and Republican policies. Longtime state lawmaker Lesko was up against Democrats at her victory party.
People ask, are you going to be a sacrificial lamb? You're just doing this to make a statement, or you're doing something because, sounds like, no, we're doing this because it's important. The district needs a voice, and I believe there are people who are ready to have that new voice.
25 years ago, I left an abusive husband, and I sure as heck.
The remaining votes overtake Debbie Lesko. That is very unlikely to happen. All the votes should be counted by the end of this week.